Welcome everybody to the Latin Nerds Network. My name is Jose and this is my review for Michael, of course, the long-awaited big screen adaptation of the King of Pop, Michael Jackson, probably one of the most influential, one of the best, probably the most iconic artist of all time. This guy was huge for those who grew up with him, like myself. Remember how big he was. He was bigger than life, and the music. I mean, it was amazing. And I'm a big Michael Jackson fan, so I was really curious to see how they kind of bring his life, because it's very complicated. A lot of ups, a lot of downs in there, and what they were gonna put on screen, what were they gonna mint, what have you. Antoine Fuqua, who's an accomplished director. I'm glad he was behind the camera. We got Jafar Jackson, who is Michael Jackson's nephew, playing him, of course. So he's quite familiar with the lore and story of Michael Jackson, of course. And I'll say this because, with biopics, they all kind of follow the same kind of formula, and I get it, right? And you almost kind of have to in biopics, and this is no different. But with any biopic, I think the level of enjoyment you get out of it solely rests on how vested you are on this subject matter. In this case, of course, Michael Jackson. And if you're a big fan of Michael Jackson like myself, kudos. You're really gonna like this movie a lot. I really had a great time with this film. This is a great look into the beginning part of his life, and I'll get to that part in a second. But just a celebration, not only one of the greatest artists we've ever seen, but the catalog of music, and it goes through all the stuff that you almost want to see, beginning with as a young child at 10 years old, with Jackson 5, and all the way up through the initial Bad album back in '88. Yeah, man, it's such a well done, very entertaining film. I really like this one a lot, and like I said, there's bias there because I'm a fan. I'm kind of curious to know if those who aren't familiar with Michael Jackson, if they're going to feel the same way, or maybe not as big as fans of him, how would they feel? But I know the audience was lit. They were up and going. People were moving in there. A lot of great little concert moments. But, obviously here, the main focus was, again, this movie went through kind of production hell, if you will. And let me educate here for a second for you guys who don't know. This was intended to be a much longer film. This was, I believe, a close to a 3.5 hour, 4 hour cut originally. The current now is like 2 hours and 10 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. And they weren't going to shy away, particularly a lot of the controversy in the latter part of his life, and they had permission from the estate to do so. And the estate made a mistake, and they had to tell them that no, they couldn't, not because they didn't have permission, they just weren't allowed to have them to do that. So they had to go back and kind of change the film, re-edit it, and I think the plan is to release 2 parts of this. I'm not sure when the second part's going to release, so keep that in mind, because my only complaint about the film, mainly, the ending feels a little abrupt and it feels incomplete, because we got to him obviously from the Jackson 5 all the way through the release of the Bad album for the most part, and there's a whole lot more there. So I think they had to redo the ending, and as such they had to pivot because of that. So this movie itself may not touch on those and we'll see if the second movie touches on those things. But again, the focus is more on his upbringing, right, which is a big crux about his career, how he became who he was as a result. And that starts with Joe Jackson, his father, notorious because of his controlling, abusive ways, if you will. And Coleman Domingo plays him. He's great. He's so sinister in this. And that relationship back and forth, which they really focus, and that's really the main focus of this film. Yeah, of course, how he got started with the Jackson 5 and so forth, but really it's the father and his influence, bad and good, positive, negative, on that, and how the film ends off. It's a really good kind of closure to that part of his story. And that's what the movie focuses on, right? Because when he broke away from his dad, truly broke away, probably around 85, 86, maybe 85. So that's good. It's really well done. Coleman Domingo is great, and they did a good job of portraying how rough it was to be him, to grow up like that and had to stardom at such a young age, and how do you adapt not having the friends and having a childhood, which kind of explains some of his behavior throughout the years, of course, notoriously of Michael Jackson. But listen, all that said, Coleman Domingo came to play. Jafar Jackson was really good, and he really captured the mannerisms, the nuance, the voice. Of course, Michael Jackson, he doesn't quite look like him, but that's okay. But it was great to see him, behind the scenes of how we started developing Beat It and Thriller. That was really great. Miles Teller's in this as well, I think playing one of his attorneys or agents, whatever, that helps him kind of break into stardom as a solo artist anyway. But yeah, everything really came together very well. The concert scenes are great. The music, I mean, again, when you such a fan of Michael Jackson, you can't help but smile and really enjoy what you're seeing on screen, because some things I didn't know about, but they're touching some things that I didn't know about, some things that didn't, which is cool. They hit the big beats, growing up, and his music as he progresses and going into first album Off the Wall, and when his hair caught on fire, all those things that were big news back in the day. So yeah, this is very enjoyable, and I hear people say it's the best biopic of all time. Calm down, let's pump the brakes down. I'm not gonna go that far. I really enjoyed it. Again, it just felt kind of incomplete, to be honest with you. And again, but I understand it, and it's fair for you guys to know that, because the way the movie ends is like, okay, there's a lot more meat left on that bone, right? But rest assured, I would assume this movie's gonna make all the money. Let's make perfectly clear it is, and I get it, and it should. So I'm hoping part 2 comes out and they can kind of touch on that second part of his life and really complete this film, his story in its entirety. So yeah, so Michael, you guys watch it for sure. If you guys are a Michael Jackson fan, absolutely you must watch in the theaters as far as I'm concerned. Had a lot of fun with this and really well done overall. And again, if you guys do, comment below, let me know what you guys think. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe below and feel the need to go to the movies and talk about it afterwards. See you guys next time.